treating trauma it takes time. Treating trauma can be difficult because people don't want to go there. There's a conception. I'm not saying it's a misconception, but a lot of people, when you think of trauma, you think, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think of that. I just want to avoid it. And unfortunately, the difficult part of working with trauma is it's counterintuitive. To work with trauma, we need to face it. We need to understand it. It's coming to terms with it and integrating it as something that has happened as part of you. And it's very painful and very takes a lot of courage for people to work and look at their trauma. And so much of what we do is around trauma. So much of our defenses, so much of how we are in this world is very often to avoid pain, avoid the painful things that happen to us. And so trauma, it's broad, but it's very, very, very real in many different ways in people's lives. One of the very difficult things for people to do, and I think for all of us to do, is to sit with difficult feelings. We don't like to feel anxious or sad, or we don't like to look at things that were difficult for us, that happened, the experiences that we really, really struggled with. So very often, maybe unconsciously, maybe to survive, because we need to survive and to cope, we tend to develop behavior, develop ways of thinking, ways of doing things that avoid. And sometimes those seem really, really productive on the outside. So we'll work 24 hours a day, all the time, just to not have to look at other stuff. Or sometimes we just isolate and we'll become closed up, or we don't talk about difficult things. So avoidance takes on so many forms, because really emotions are very, very painful, and they can be very, very painful. And so it's very difficult. And I think one of the tough things about people fear coming to therapy is actually this is a space where I'm going to start facing some of those things and talking about some of those things. And I think there's a lot of apprehension around that we live with a lot of pain in our lives, a lot of emotional pain on many different levels. And so when we can defend against it, and when we can not have to deal with it, people don't, but sometimes it catches up with you. Sometimes then you're almost forced to look at what it is that you were avoiding or not wanting to deal with.